The year is 2025. The world stands at a crossroads, with history poised to take a dramatic turn. Tensions have reached a boiling point as the United States and China engage in a high-stakes rivalry that shapes the fate of nations far beyond their borders. The trade war has escalated into a global economic standoff. Tariffs soar, and both sides target critical technologies, AI chips, rare earth minerals, and advanced electronics. Every shipment, every contract is now a potential weapon in this economic battlefield. China's Belt and Road Initiative has redrawn the map of global trade, securing vital supply routes and gaining control over dozens of strategic ports. This bold move directly challenges U.S. naval dominance and reshapes the balance of power at sea. In response, the U.S. doubles down on its Pacific alliances, conducting joint military exercises and reinforcing its presence near Taiwan, the flashpoint that keeps the world on edge, where a single miscalculation could ignite a global crisis. Diplomatic efforts falter as both nations brace for the worst. China stockpiles essential resources, while the U.S. imposes tighter restrictions on technology exports. The world watches as trust erodes and preparations for conflict intensify. The threat of war now extends beyond the battlefield. Nations brace for cyber attacks, sweeping economic sanctions, and the deployment of advanced weaponry. The rules of engagement are changing, and no one is truly prepared for what comes next. As December 7, 2025 approaches, a heavy silence settles over the Pacific. The world holds its breath, waiting for the first move in a conflict that could reshape the future. The question is no longer if war will come, but how it will begin. Every headline, every rumor, adds to the growing sense of dread. Military analysts warn that the first strike will be digital, not physical. The opening shots may be silent, but their impact could be devastating. Around the globe, people watch and wait, gripped by anxiety and uncertainty. The world stands on the edge, staring into the unknown, hoping for peace but preparing for the worst. The stage is set for a conflict unlike any before, one that will test the limits of technology, diplomacy, and human resolve. The abyss of uncertainty has never felt closer. The world holds its breath, waiting for the dawn of a new era, one that could change everything. War erupts not with the roar of artillery, but with a silent, invisible wave of cyber attacks. In the opening seconds, digital warfare sweeps across networks, targeting critical infrastructure and sowing confusion before a single shot is fired. Taiwan's power grids and communications collapse in minutes, plunging entire cities into darkness. Emergency services are paralyzed, and millions are left isolated, unable to reach loved ones or access vital information. U.S. military bases in Japan and Guam are hit by similar digital assaults, scrambling to defend their systems as alarms blare and screens flicker with warning signals. Satellites are jammed, cutting off vital lines of communication and navigation. The fog of war thickens as chaos spreads through the command networks. China's strategy is clear: paralyze its enemies before the first missile is launched. In war rooms, commanders monitor the unfolding digital onslaught, confident in their plan to cripple resistance. Moments later, the kinetic phase begins. Hundreds of Chinese missiles rain down on Taiwan's defenses. Airfields, ports, radar installations, and missile batteries are struck in rapid succession. Overwhelming response efforts. U.S. naval assets in the region are targeted, their radars lighting up with incoming threats. The message is unmistakable: stay out or face destruction. China declares a blockade, encircling Taiwan with warships and enforcing a no-fly zone. The island is cut off from the world, its skies and seas under hostile control. This is not an invasion, but a siege, designed to strangle Taiwan into submission. Trade grinds to a halt, and vital supplies are trapped offshore. The world watches in shock as the brutal efficiency of modern, multi-domain warfare is revealed. Cyber, space, air, sea, and land, all engaged at once. For Taiwan's people, it's a sudden plunge into darkness and fear. Families huddle in shelters, uncertain of what comes next. For U.S. and Taiwanese commanders, it's a desperate scramble to respond, racing against time to restore order and mount a defense. The first hour is over. The world's most dangerous conflict has only just begun, and the stakes have never been higher. The rules of war have changed forever, and the world must now reckon with a new era of conflict, one where the digital and the kinetic are inseparable. In Washington, emergency meetings erupt as the scale of the attack becomes clear. The president condemns China's aggression, promising a swift response. U.S. forces mobilize, moving assets toward the Pacific. Taiwan activates its Porcupine defense mobile missiles and drone swarms strike back at the blockade. The goal isn't victory, but to make China pay for every inch. U.S. allies like Japan and Australia join in, while Europe imposes sanctions but hesitates militarily. Russia backs China, blaming the U.S. for the crisis. The world splits into rival camps. Alliances harden, economies fracture, the US and allies freeze Chinese assets and cut Beijing off from global banking. The initial battles around Taiwan are just the beginning of a much larger global struggle. The world's fault lines are redrawn overnight. The conflict is now a battle between two world orders. By day 2, the war shifts to a contest of industrial might. US and Chinese factories retool overnight, churning out drones and missiles. China's manufacturing power gives it an edge in mass production, while the US bets on technological superiority. Both sides race to outproduce and out-innovate the other. The US expands its tech blockade, starving China's industries of advanced components. Global supply chains collapse as companies and nations are forced to pick sides. Economic interdependence becomes a weapon. The world economy plunges into shock. The war will be won not just on the battlefield, but in the factories and markets of a fractured world. The age of globalization ends in a single week. 1 week in, Taiwan's resistance bleeds China's blockade. Mobile missile strikes and drone attacks inflict steady losses on the Chinese fleet. The US and Japan attempt dangerous airlifts of supplies, risking deadly encounters with Chinese air defenses. China tightens its grip, expanding the conflict zone and targeting US bases and logistics. The war's cost rises for everyone. Military and civilian casualties mount, and Taiwan faces shortages and blackouts. The global economy reels as shipping through the Taiwan Strait halts. The dream of a quick war vanishes, replaced by a grinding stalemate. The world watches, horrified, as the conflict drags on. Every day the price of intervention grows. The question, how much more can either side endure? The war's human toll becomes impossible to ignore. By week 3, economic warfare explodes. The US and G7 cut China from SWIFT, freezing billions in assets. China retaliates, halting rare earth exports and weaponizing supply chains. The US imposes a distant blockade, but China's stockpiles and overland routes through Russia blunt its impact. Russia ramps up energy exports to China, cementing their alliance. The world plunges into recession, markets crash, supply chains shatter, and nations are forced to choose sides. Globalization collapses, replaced by rival economic blocs. For ordinary people, the war is felt in empty shelves, lost jobs, and soaring prices. The pain is universal, and the end is nowhere in sight. The economic battlefield is as ruthless as the military one. 2 months in, the war grinds into attrition. Drones dominate the skies as both sides lose too many pilots to risk manned flights. Taiwan's blockade tightens, creating a humanitarian crisis. Food and medicine run low. The US air bridge can't sustain 23 million people. China lets the blockade do the work, squeezing Taiwan's will to resist. Long-range strikes hit military and industrial targets deep in both nations. The war comes home. No one is safe from the reach of modern weapons. US industry struggles to keep up. China's mass production gives it an edge. The conflict is now a test of national endurance and willpower. The question is no longer whose technology is better, but whose society can survive the cost. The world watches as both giants bleed. The war's true price is only beginning to emerge. 6 months in, the US opens a new front, targeting China's Eurasian supply lines. Special forces, cyber attacks, and proxy wars disrupt railways and pipelines along the Belt and Road. The goal forced China to divert resources and expose new vulnerabilities. Russia responds, deepening its alliance with China and deploying forces to secure the land routes. The conflict becomes a global chess match, maritime powers led by the US versus the Eurasian bloc of China and Russia. The war spreads beyond Taiwan, threatening to engulf entire regions. The world is now divided into 2 camps, each racing to secure its own future. The stakes are nothing less than the shape of the global order. Every move risks a wider, more devastating war. The great game of the 21st century is underway. The outcome will echo for generations. After months of relentless devastation, victory remains elusive for both sides. The world has watched in horror as cities are reduced to rubble, and the cost of war mounts with every passing day. The US and China are battered, militaries depleted, economies shattered, societies divided. Once mighty armies now struggle to regroup, while financial markets teeter on the edge of collapse and ordinary people face uncertainty and fear. Taiwan endures, but at a terrible cost. Its people have shown remarkable resilience, but the scars of war run deep, and the trauma will linger for generations. The blockade has failed to break its spirit, but the island is scarred, its infrastructure battered, its communities forever changed by the siege. China's ambitions are blunted, the US faces deep recession and political turmoil. Both nations are forced to confront the limits of their power, and the world order is shaken to its core. The world economy is broken, with famine and instability spreading in vulnerable nations. Supply chains have collapsed and millions are left without food, shelter, or hope. Decades of global cooperation unravel, climate, health, and prosperity sacrificed to war. International progress halts and urgent crises go unanswered as nations turn inward. The true cost is measured in lost potential and shattered lives. Families mourn loved ones, and entire communities are left to pick up the pieces of what once was. The war proves that in a conflict between superpowers, there are no winners, only ruin. The devastation is total, and the consequences will echo for decades. The world must reckon with the lesson. Some wars are unwinnable. Leaders gather, searching for answers, but the path forward is uncertain and fraught with mistrust. The tragedy is not who lost, but that it happened at all. The suffering inflicted cannot be undone, and history will remember the folly of this conflict. The ashes of this conflict demand a new vision for peace. From the ruins, hope must be rebuilt, and the world must find the courage to choose reconciliation over revenge. The world's future depends on learning from this reckoning. Only by facing the hard truths of war can humanity chart a path toward a more peaceful tomorrow.